my fellow car maulers, how you doing today? Well, I just woke up on this lovely Sunday morning, and the first thing I do lots of times is I like to fire up Facebook and see what's going on there, and I turn on my YouTube. And lo and behold, two things came across this morning that just inspired me to make a video for you guys. If you saw this morning, Mark Batson has an outstanding video. It's Hobby Dude 007. What a great video on totally fabricating your own NASCAR chassis. This guy is just such an amazing scratch builder, and it's so neat that he's brought his talents and his know-how to YouTube for all of us. So you go and check that out. Because this isn't the same, but it kind of, he discussed things that I'm about to discuss. The second thing is on a Facebook group. I wish I could remember. There was another discussion that has been going on for years in the NASCAR modeling community. And someone who has one of the re-releases of, or it might even be a new one, but here's one version of it, is the MPC 71 Cyclone NASCAR. So he wanted to know what would be a better chassis to use for this body. And all the same great suggestions, but there is a suggestion I have had for years that nobody seems to listen to. Everybody kind of doesn't get what I'm saying, and I think here on video you're going to understand what I've been saying all these years. So just to start off, I have here a prepped body. It's all ready to go. I was doing the Wood Brothers car, and the only thing I've done to this body is I've just kind of opened up those wheel wells exactly the way the Wood Brothers had it in their car, and I used the out-of-the-box chassis. I was just doing an out-of-the-box here, and this is the old MPC chassis. It's not bad. It's okay. It builds up into a nice looking model, but if you want to do something really accurate and look right and do nice detail, you don't want to bother with this. You don't really want to bother with this. I'm going to put that right there. And you have the Salvino's JR chassis, which is much better. This is a pretty good representation of a 70s chassis. You kind of might not want to rage your Salvino's JR chassis because, these kits, you kind of want to just build those out of the box. They have great representation of a 70s car. But if you really, really want to go all out, super detail, something that I've done for years and years and years, and you might have a whole bunch of the old Thunderbirds from Monogram. It really that could get pricey too nowadays if you don't have these. But I bought up so many of these Thunderbird kits just for this particular chassis for many, many reasons I've covered before, is how I like the Banjo Matthews chassis, and I'll put a GM body on top of them. That's been done to death on this channel. You pretty much had in the early 70s Holman and Moody still doing their chassis. They were the pick to use. Most cars did, especially if you're doing this particular car I'm doing. Let's say I'm wanting to build a Woods Brothers car. You had those, and then Banjo kind of took over it. He kind of took the ball and ran when Holman and Moody kind of phased out and shut down from doing NASCAR chassis, and he was the big boy of the 70s. So you had your Banjo Matthews rear steer chassis in the 70s. And when the 80s came and they downsized, as far as the construction, there wasn't a lot of differences through those years. So that there was like a 10-year period of evolution. But it really didn't change a lot. Just a few minor things. So this Banjo chassis can also be, with a couple of little tweaks here and there, and I'm not really going to get into that too much, can be a great representation of a Holman and Moody chassis, which your 71 Cyclone, depending on what one you want to build, would more than likely have that chassis in it. Now, we move into what everybody suggests for years is, well, you take an AMT chassis and you stretch it out. As we know, in the 70s, these cars were about 115-inch wheelbase. By 1981, we downsized to 110, which is what this represents. But something nobody ever takes into account, 24th scale, 25th scale. This is where you can let the scales work for you. The big popular consensus of doing a swap like this was to use the AMT Ford chassis or banjo chassis from the late 80s, early 90s when AMT was putting out those NASCAR kits. Me personally, not a fan of those kits. I don't really like them. I have a few. I use them mostly for parts, and I use the chassis for making... I actually don't really use those chassis, quite honest. I've pretty much rated them for parts. Not that I never will. I have a few of them just in case, but I'm not a fan of the AMT chassis. And plus with those, see, everybody's in the mindset of you're dealing with a 25th scale body, you got to use a 25th scale chassis. No, you're adding work, because then you got to take that... what would be a 110-inch wheelbase and stretch it out to a 115-inch wheelbase. Why don't you let the scales work for you? So we have an unaltered monogram 110 inch wheelbase chassis. We have pretty much unaltered MPC 115-inch wheelbase body. What happens when we just go ahead with no altering and pretty much popping it? It's not going to fit perfect because you do have to do some work. Like the dashboards this is keeping it from totally sitting. But you can see if I force it up in there. Ba-ba! Look at that. Without any cutting, without any shrink in the chassis. And look at how that roll cage fits in there. Like I said, it's still poking down because of this. You still have to do some modifying, but pretty much look at that. I mean, how easy is that? Bam! Done. No heavy modifying. I get that up in there. Look at the wheelbase is perfect. 24th scale chassis, 25th scale body. You know, hey, let's do it again. I'm going to take this Gray Ghost since I have it sitting here. We want the Gray Ghost to have a banjo chassis. This really curls in, so it's going to be a tight squeeze. Let me get this in here. This is so much. I love doing this. I've been saying this on the message boards for years, and nobody understood what I was saying. You got to get out of that mindset of scales. It's not that. You know what? I'm having a lot of problems. This is going to take a lot of work because this body really curls in. I'm just going to remove that. We don't really need it. So we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to go with, we're concerned about wheelbase more than anything. Again, we always have this thing that keeps us from getting it all the way down, but you can see, look at that. Bam! Wheelbase, perfect. And we're going to do one more body. I have an old AMT Laguna body. And this would also work with the MPC Laguna that everybody likes, like that Pepsi car / Cannonball Run car, the 76 Laguna. They all pretty much have the same wheelbase. You still, again, that stopped me from getting it down all the way, but you can see, whammo, wheelbase, perfect. So my point of this video is just, if you're doing an old 70s car, and this works with even like you take an obscure body that you get something from MPC, an old MPC body, anything, any old 70s, 60s stock car body, and you want to have a good representation of a Banjo Matthews / Holman and Moody chassis to go underneath there to make yourself a nice looking stock car, get one of the monogram Ford Thunderbird kits and use this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I'm just going to go on about these, but they're still pretty easy to obtain. Just any of the 80s, early 90s Thunderbird kits, you get this chassis in it. I collected those things up because of this, and you can just go ahead and put any 25th scale body from the 70s onto this 24 scale chassis, and you have got yourself a stock car. Ooh, that was winded. I hope you guys decipher everything I was saying and get what I'm saying. Don't worry about the AMT cars. Those chassis just really stink. I know some of you are really big fans of them, but why go through the trouble of shortening them when you can out of the box? This is literally out of the box built, and you saw how, with very little modifications, how it's just going to work out really nice. Why fight it, dude? Work smart, not hard, I always say. And with that said, go out there and keep gluing your fingers together and keep cutting that styrene. And be sure, if you like this kind of content, like and subscribe. It helps us a ton. And go on over to our Teespring store. We got shirts and we got mugs. And I'll tell you what, I've lowered the prices too. So it's even a better deal now. So you get on over there to Teespring and check out the stuff we have. And we're going to come out with some new shirts too, kind of liven it up and things. And I'll tell you what, guys, you are the best. Thank you a ton for your support. And if you want to be a producer and get onto this scroll that I'm about to show you and help out with this channel with suggestions and whatever, you can just give $1 a month. It is really helpful, and you get involved with a great group of people who help make suggestions to grow this channel and to come up with ideas for this show. Go on over to my Patreon, join up. You get personal content with me. I do a lot of videos for those guys. Well, I'm not going to say a lot. They're going to say, yeah, right, Luka, a lot of videos. But I do. I'll put out videos or little previews of stuff that I'm doing, and I give it to those guys and let them check it out and give their input. Or sometimes I just make a video strictly for them. Go on, jump on over there, check it out, see if you want to be a part of the crew. Those guys will gladly let you in. They're a bunch of great guys. And with that being said, here they are. Here's my producers.